Now, India-China reach agreement on patrolling along LAC, stage set for Modi and Xi meeting at BRICS. Now, the extended BRICS meeting is supposed to happen in Kazan, Russia, and the summit will start from today. But before that, we were talking about that the both the sides have been meeting consistently and talking about how to revert to the pre 2020 situation of normalcy and patrolling. So what had happened was that there were 5 points which we are going to talk about. You should be able to draw all those 5 points. So for example, the Deep Sang Plains, Hot Springs, Galwan, Daulat Beg, Oldie, and Sangpo and Demchok. So these are the areas which were all problematic after 2020 clashes, and the patrolling in certain areas was restricted by the by the Chinese side, and India also restricted the patrolling of Chinese in certain areas. So this overhang of border issues were basically impacting our overall general issues. What had happened was that because of the Galwan clashes and the border issue, that had kind of hijacked the entire bilateral relationship, and it was understood by both countries that we cannot keep on moving up and down over the same issue, and therefore there were a lot of diplomatic talks and talks regarding the same. And now what has arrived is that we have reached an understanding of disengagement, because of, as I told you, that always remember the technical words while you are writing answers. So WMCC is the word that you need to remember. So working mechanism on consultation and coordination is where this particular breakthrough happened. And now India and China has agreed to disengage in this area, and there are around 50,000 to 60,000 troops of either side engaged in this particular area, and this is exactly what this is. So the patrolling will come down, and because of this the working mechanism of consultation and coordination, this has basically led to this particular break. And these are the friction points. The friction points are there. Also the friction points, the 7 friction points are also mentioned here as well. See, there are 7 friction points in the eastern Ladakh where the Indian and Chinese troop have confrontation since May 2020. This includes patrolling point 14, patrolling point 15 at Hot Springs, patrolling point 17 at Gorga, north south banks of Songpong, Pangong, So Lake, then Deep Sang Plain, and the Charding Nola. So you should be aware about these situations, and the fact that we have also said that there were sensor sensitive sectors where we had also curtailed the movement of Chinese in Arunachal Pradesh as well. So it's part of coordination that we will allow them to basically work in these areas. Now among all of these, the Deep Sang Plain is a very significant region because it lies around it's strategically important because if you see it, it is 30 kilometers southeast of the strategically important Doleg Beg Oldie, near Karakoram Pass, and among the mountainous region, this is a plain surface. That's why it's called plains. And basically, if there is plains, then the military can set up their base there and then target the opposition side. So therefore, this is a very important development with respect to this. So you can read these two articles. Very important development. Then the next is, after Naidu, Stalin talks about larger families linked it to delimitation. Elderly fertility down. Why Andhra and Tamil Nadu are talking about kids. So, and there is another article in the editorial, and then there's another article on the explained page for this. And this is typically a question that will often be asked now in the interview session when the interview seasons will start. So among this, what has happened is that you should be aware that India is going to go for a delimitation exercise in 2026, and on the basis of this delimitation exercise, the seats in the Lok Sabha are allocated on the basis basis of your population, just when the census is completed. Apart from that, even under finances, federal finances, we already know that there are certain percentage of money that comes to state is based on the population of that particular state. So and population is also important from other perspectives as well. So there's something called as dependency ratio. Now dependency ratio is basically number of elderly per 100 children, and we see on all these parameters the southern states are relatively at a disadvantageous situation as compared to northern Indian states, because of the fact that the fertility decline that they were able to achieve after 1971 1981 was a much quicker than that of India. Now we are going to talk about a number of articles with respect to this, but I'm going to give you a summary. Now in the entire world, the total fertility rate was, countries had reduced their total fertility rates in 200 years, 250 years. For example, we'll read an article in which we'll talk about the fact that a country like England, a country like France, had reduced their total fertility rate from 6 to 2 in 250 years, 225 years, whereas India has done the same in 45 years. Now this is a problem, because all these countries which were able to reduce their total fertility rate to a lower amount were basically in the way that they became rich before they became old. This is a saying, rich, becoming rich before you turn old. And but in case of India, within couple of generations, we've turned it around, and we've reached this target in 45 years. The problem lies with the fact that will we be rich before we get old? And this is a reality that the southern Indian states have woken up to, because the northern Indian states are still young, and they're still going to enjoy that demographic dividend, so as to say. Whereas the southern Indian states are going to have to pay for the demographic debt now. So this is something that needs to be talked about. Apart from that, what also needs to be seen is that India has achieved this particular target in a democratic way, except for certain instances in 1970s, whereas China has done it. China has been faster than us, but they have been able to do it because of their one child policy, and now they've relaxed this, and now they're in fact incentivizing people to have more children. But one of the articles that we will see is that instead of this, we should basically invest more in women empowerment. We should invest more in ability of women to join the labor force, rather than this myopic view of having more children. So read about, so these two articles talk about this, and we'll talk about the editorial that is there in the other. Then stubble burning, Haryana arrests 18 farmers, bars over 400 from mandis because of stubble burning. And you might know that we'll anyways talk about that thing as well. So read these two articles, then let's talk about another article. Yes, at 310 AQI, Delhi most polluted city in the country, and what will now happen is that the graded action response will now get into place. So graded response action plan will come into play. Stage 1 has already been implemented. Now stage 2 will be implemented. You should be aware about this, and it is being implemented by the Central Pollution Control Board. Then we will then move to stage 3 later on, but this is what stage 2 will there. And if you see Delhi Pollution Control Board, there is an ad that is there, public notice has been put up. It talks about what happens in stage 1, then what happens in stage 2, then what happens in stage 3, and then what happens in stage 4. So with time, another 10 days or so, we are going to reach this severe and severe plus category. And this is the reason that I will be operating from Goa in the next 10 days, because of this pollution issue. In fact, I might be a migrant, that I might now I'm thinking of buying another house in South Goa, because of the pollution issue that Delhi sees every year. So you will see migrations happening, and migrations happening which are stemmed from the fact that this Delhi NCR region is becoming extremely polluted. Then, apart from that, let's go to the main part of the paper. Then, fragile piece. Now we've learned from yesterday that there were 7 people who were gunned down in the region of Srinagar. Now this comes in the background of the India-Pakistan talks at the SCO. But what I see is this is a larger part of tit for tat strategy, because India, through its perhaps this is what I'm guessing, that the a number of the CPEC infrastructure projects that are happening in Pakistan have been targeted by Balochistan activists. Therefore, as a tit for tat, Pakistan is also targeting certain regions. You can't write this, folks, but this is what it seems to be. Pakistan is using its own terror infrastructure, and targeting India's physical infrastructure. And the latest has been the Z More tunnel project of near Srinagar, and this is at Sonamarg on Srinagar Leh highway, which basically is a larger initiative to create all weather, all year connectivity road between Srinagar and Ladakh. So and this comes as the fact that there has been a reduction in militant activity in the last 5 years, but also what is seen is that in the last three instances, instead of targeting military targets, terrorists have also targeted civilian targets. For example, the Raisi bus pilgrimage, pilgrims were targeted. Now these individuals were targeted. So we need to think about how to basically how our neighbor is still using terror as a element of its foreign policy. At the same point of time, we cannot have our guards down, despite the fact that a democratic government is now in place in Jammu and Kashmir. Then the next article, when tomorrow comes, I told you that Andhra CM's population anxiety is myopic, and state needs to empower women to make better choices. And as I told you that most of these states, the median age is increasing. In fact, their dependency ratio is increasing with time. And we've been able to reduce our population by a huge amount, especially northern Indian states have been able to do it. And if you see our total fertility rate has been down, and the exponential the average annual exponential population growth in India has been 1.2%, which is by a survey by SBI, but down from 1.64% rate in 2011 when the survey was conducted. So this is what has led to or decline in massive decline in population. But at the same point of time, instead of adopting this coercive playbook, we need to involve us in more of sex education in school, disseminating information about reproductive rights, family planning, healthcare, and all of this needs to be talked about rather than just talking about increasing population. Then, this is a part of the news that we had missed yesterday from the explain page. This is a generic news, folks, because in fact, I have also seen a number of people doing this. That instead of going for for weight reduction, for example, people stop eating carbs. But what we have seen is that we need a healthy diet, which also include carbs, and these new fancy diets like GM diet, and then you have keto diets are not very very helpful. So this basically article talks about the fact that yes, there are global lifestyle crises that are happening, but at the same point of time, important part of human evolution has been the presence of enzyme amylase in the saliva, because enzyme amylase is basically what helps breaking down the breakdown of your carbohydrate starts in your mouth, rather than in your stomach. So the amylase that is found in your saliva is basically where the breaking down of starchy plants happen. And the presence of amylase gene in the saliva has been found in two waves. First was several hundred years ago, that coincided perhaps with the discovery of fire, and with the discovery of fire you were able to basically cook food and then eat carbs. And the second was to 12,000 years ago, when we learned how to grow food, and because of this humans had the access to dietary options like wheat and rice. So we this is something that we are predisposed to. It is not an enemy of ours, but what we need to see is that carbs is a key component of happiness and satiety, and we need to balance it with other forms of macronutrients. Then the US custom wall. The US customs wall is basically an article which talks about the fact that US has recently stopped a lot of our exports to the country because it violates certain norms. For example, it has detained around 43 million worth of solar panels in India since October 2023, because it is in line with Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which was basically enacted by Biden to import and prohibit any kind of goods that are manufactured in and around the part of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Regions, because in this particular region the Uyghur Muslims are being used and they are being forced to work for a number of hours and then produce a thing. Now we've talked about this yesterday as well, that for our solar panel and for our solar needs, we are quite dependent on China, because they are basically world's leading power in production of electronic items, especially the solar voltaic cells. So this is something that we need to also take care of, that what is our dependence, and our dependence on China for a number of things have been increasing. At the same point of time, the we had talked about self sufficiency, and then we'll be able to achieve self sufficiency in some time, but we've not had companies which have invested in this particular area. So over the last decade, the global solar PV panels, and first of all you should be aware that the polycrystalline silicon, the raw material for batteries and solar cells, solar voltaic modules and others, have come from this particular region, and this is a very very important, this silicon is a very very important component that we need to produce. But the problem is that we are not able to produce this. Then the other issue is that share of all manufacturing stages in solar panels exceeding 80% is coming from China, and both US and India are basically starting to reduce their dependence on China, and then especially after the COVID issue of 2020. Then apart from that, the center has made certain initiatives, for example the PLI scheme, for basically high efficiency solar modules in 2021, and then but most of these basically companies which have won this PLI scheme thing has also listed Chinese vendors as their supplier for raw material. And the government also launched this National Battery Advanced Chemistry Cell Storage program, but there is no specific allocation for PLI for this particular section. Now we are basically trying to plug in into the Chinese this thing supply chain, but at the same point of time we should be aware that where is the product actually coming from China. So that domestic politics of China we should be aware about, and we should not rely on external people to tell us that where is it coming from. We should have our own intelligence for this. Then the next article, which is Berlin Delhi reconnection. Now the chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, is basically coming to India, and now we are going to talk about a number of things with respect to our relationship with Germany. Now we have to understand that our relationship with all other Anglo countries have improved significantly in the last 5 to 7 years. So let's take our example of US. Our relation relationship with the US has strengthened and deepened a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. Our relationship, even in Europe, our relationship with France has improved a lot. Our relationship with Britain has improved a lot. But at the same point of time, our relationship with Germany has not moved in in the same breadth and in the same depth as in case with other countries. And this despite the fact that India has now become the largest and the biggest country in Commonwealth, and the fact that the world has also realized that it needs to see India as a very important player if they want to counter Russia, if they want to counter China, the emergence of China in Asia. So what has happened in the last few years, 2 to 4 years, is that Germany, despite the fact it's the biggest country and it's the powerhouse of Europe, it has realized that there are number of angles to the Russia Ukraine war. And Delhi basically stands, despite the fact that everyone in Europe was berating Delhi for having a strong connection to Russia, but India stands steadfast and says that we are in support of ending of the war, but we are not going to take sides because of our for our strategic reasons, and then the fact that we have had an old relationship with Russia. Also, countries have realized that. So this is the first part, and countries have also realized that India is one of the most population nation and a stable democracy, and a central player in international politics, and therefore it is also a voice of global South. So we need to have a deep relationship with it. Then I'd already told you that there is divergence with respect to what India views in terms of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and everyone needs to understand that this is how our view is and how our view are have been shaped. At the same point of time, there is a major breakthrough of putting China first in the Asian economic policy, and you will see that there is engagement of all countries commercially with India as well. In fact, you can see this when you read The Economist. In Asia, there is a special section for China that is always there, but now you are also getting a lot of articles on India, which goes to show that yes, the Anglo-Saxon world now basically is also paying a lot of interest on the rise of India. Then, apart from that, what is also needed is a deeper consultation for with civil and defense establishment, more military exchange, reciprocal arrangements between India and Germany. At the same point of time, what India would need is cooperation with respect to predictability of arms exports as well as technology transfer, because this is where the Germans are really good at technology. So we would like them to have technology transfer with respect to a number of things. So this is the entire article. You can read this article and read the last paragraph. It's a beautiful paragraph which ends how India has basically moved in the independent period. So read this. Then comes the other thing. Now this is again a terror attack. Many single proxy war in JNK is far from over. Restricted frequency of violence must in no way lead to complacency. As I was telling you that we have reduced I mean the number of attacks that are there, but at the same point of time, the fact that attacks are there and they are attacking. Initially they were there in the initially they were there in the region of Jammu. Now they have again shifted back to the region of Srinagar, and attacking these areas which are closer to LOC. At the same point of time, there are infrastructure projects. We need to step up our guard in terms of our surveillance, and manage to thwart all these nefarious activities of the deep state of Pakistan. So you can read this. Then an interesting article, "Don't Discount the Sale," is basically how all these Flipkarts and all the Amazons during their this thing big season sale, or this Diwali sale, how they adjust their prices, how they adjust their this thing discounts to achieve a higher target. And what was very interesting was that something that was very counterintuitive for me as well, that an Indian consumer begins a product discovery 18.3 days before making the actual purchase. So this is something great, and that is why now I can connect that people come up with their ads. For example, for all new courses, they come up with their ads around 1 to 2 months before the actual launch of the product. Suri, you can read this article, not very important from a UPSC point of view, but just an analytical article. Then what is Zemoth tunnel? Now if you see, this is the Zemoth tunnel. You can see that there is this Sonamarg, and this is Kangan. And if you see that this particular road is basically linking Srinagar to basically Ladakh, and that is why this is an important road. And this basically cuts down on this particular region. So the importance is that it's strategically vital for the Srinagar Leh highway, which is highway number 1, and the other is the Manali Leh highway, which is highway number 3. So it is a part of the Zojila tunnel project. Now you should also be knowing all these passes as part of your GS, all the passes, and which pass connects which part of the country to other part of the country. So there are around 20-30 passes that you need to do. UPSC every 2-3 years it does ask about passes. So the Zojila Pass, which seeks to provide an all-weather connectivity between Srinagar, Dras, Kargil, and Leh. So what happens right now is that NH1 and NH3 basically remain closed during winters because of heavy snowfall and avalanches. But this particular road, because it's going through under root tunnels, which will help us to basically reach an get to an all-weather road to this particular region. So read about this. And this was initially started, and in 2012, but the construction, there was over time, this thing overlags, and it is going to be completed by 2026. Then by the way, the word mega engineering, you should be aware of something with respect to electoral bonds. Then if you want to read C. elegans, microscopic worm studying which so far had won scientists for Nobel Prizes, what this worm does and how does it work. So you can read this. Then you have the population question. The population question is again the article with respect to both these Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. And let's compare these two states. So if you see 0 to 14 years, right now 31% of India's population in 2011 was there, and 60% was in the working age group, and 8.4% in the retired region. But if you see, by 2026 it will be around 15%, this will be around 65%, this will be 20%, and by 2050 it is expected that 1 in 5, 20% of our population will be above 60. So the and this ratio will further decline. So the dependency ratio is going to be very high when it comes to this particular population. So we need to work, and this aging population and the dependency ratio is something that is a concern, and that is how we define the demographic dividend as well. And the converse of demographic dividend is this particular this thing. Just give me 1 second, folks. This happens to be a lizard in my room. Just a second. Yeah. Now, the next is just read this article with respect to this and how incentives work and how incentives don't work. So they're trying to provide incentives just like incentives have been provided in China and Europe and Japan for having more babies. Then the last article for the day is what is satellite spectrum. Very very important article from science and tech point of view. Now satellite spectrum is basically where you get internet and you get telephone services all from satellite and sat nav instead of the terrestrial network that we have. So right now what we are using is terrestrial network. We have these lines that are there, and then and through this terrestrial network we are getting the internet. So what is there is that ITU has also, the International Telecommunication Union, and is also specialized agency of UN, has also called for the use of the satellite communication and satellite spectrum, and why they should not hold auctions for this. They should give it via this thing. They should give this via administratively they should give it rather than giving it via auction. So satellite services basically an array of services, and this is where Elon Musk has a huge majority in of major satellites in the world. So there's another article that I read recently, that it plans to have around 40,000 satellites in the low Earth orbit to provide internet and communication services throughout the world. So the SATCOM services is basically use of array of satellites in the orbit to provide connectivity on ground. They do not require wire transmit, so they are in some sense they are cheaper. And the other is called terrestrial network, for example cable, fiber and digital subscriber, DSL line. All of this is cable internet. So the benefit of satellite is that even you can reach the remote areas where telephone communication does not exist, and even when you have say hurricanes and cyclones, the satellite based communication will not be altered and you can still use it. Plus you need lesser components on the ground. You just need a receiver satellite, and then you can work around with this. The SATCOM sector is going to grow further in the next few years, and India is ranked fourth in terms of investment, in terms of the untapped sector of this particular region. Now, auction versus allocation, there has been a lot of debate with respect to this. Spectrum services is exclusive and managed by only one single operator, whereas in case of others, since satellites, the same spectrum is not exclusive in nature, so therefore it should be divided in an administrative manner. So this is what the article says. Please read about it. And the last thing that you need to read is India's growth outlook supported by robust domestic engines, RBI's bulletin. Please read that. This is an important article for people who are also preparing for Indian Economic Services interview. So read this particular thing, and what? Yeah, that's it. That's all that you need to read. If you want to read India likely to be the third largest economy by 2047, you can read this. So with this we end our newspaper, and I'll meet you tomorrow same time around 6 o'clock with respect to tomorrow's newspaper. Thank you very much folks. Bye bye.